ever outbid the Democrats for buying votes? I learned this when I was 14 years old in New York. Governor Rockefeller destroyed the Republican Party of New York because he was a Republican buying votes. Show me a Republican who buys votes, or show me a Republican who destroys the Republican Party. When we give up principle, we have nothing. So I'm worried about Governor Scott. And then you'll hear from the rest of my remarks, there are things he can and should do for a lot less than $1 billion. So remember the billboards with the OIV? Let me tell you the billboards I want. I want the billboards in every inner city in this country that says things like black unemployment, 14%. Had enough? 70% of urban black children born out of wedlock. Had enough? Single greatest cause of death among young black people, other young black people. Had enough? 50% of young black women have sexually transmitted diseases. Had enough? 1/3 of all abortions are minorities. Had enough? 60% of Hispanics drop out of high school. Had enough? You kind of get the idea. The last 4 years was the single greatest increase of black poverty in the history of America in a 4-year period. Did you hear this once? Never. From our side, you didn't hear it. Of course, you're not going to hear it from the other side. Did we spend $1 doing all the things here to try to get any of these votes? No. We spent $1 billion trying to get the next white vote. I have a concept. Right before I do that, let me do it. If I was running for president of the United States of America, I would hold a major rally at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. Yeah, you can clap. This is too good. And by the way, that's who I am. But by the way, it also who say a Marco Rubio is, or a Jeb Bush, or a Chris Christie. It's not who Mitt Romney is. I don't say this as an insult. I say it as an observation. I would go to the Apollo Theater and I would say, I'm here to talk about two-parent families and sexually transmitted diseases and dropout factories and crime and substandard housing and all the things the Democrats have done for you for 50 years, and I'm here to talk about it. And I would say to them the same thing I said to those Jewish people 15 years ago. I don't care if there's a single vote for me in this room. I'm going to talk about the things you need to talk about. You think you want to go to a bunch of black people and talk about deficits? It's almost funny when you hear me say it. They don't want to talk about deficits. They're afraid to walk out of their houses. 500 people got killed in Chicago last year. Rahm Emanuel, 500 people get killed. How did the Democrats get a single vote in Chicago, much less 80 or 90%? Who would do this to people? What kind of people would take kids and not allow them to learn to read? I mean, you got to think about this. What kind of people would do stuff like this? This isn't bad public policy. This is cruelty. And we're the ones who have to be defensive all the time. So I'm not defensive. We have two groups, one of which I started, called the NBRA and the NHRA. The NBRA is the National Black Republican Association. I started it right here, 15 minutes from where we are in Chris Ruddy's office, with my friend Frances Rice 7 years ago. She's a wonderful woman. I sent her an email the other day. I said, Frances, how much money in this campaign did you get from either the Romney people, the RNC, RPOF, or any of the institutional Republican groups? Not a dime. The $15,000 that she raised last year, she puts up a billboard in downtown Atlanta that says Martin Luther King was a Republican, which he was. They don't give her one dime. They got a free pass here in Palm Beach County because the RJC raises its own money because we're Jewish and we write checks. Well, you can't go to the National Black Republican Association and say, get black people to write checks. Because they don't have any money. And we had $1 billion for the campaign, and we wouldn't write anything. My one speech at the Apollo is worth 100 speeches in the suburbs of Ohio. Trust me when I tell you that. One speech. Why? The Democrats who only do awful things to people, only have one campaign policy. They had it with Romney, they had it with Rick Scott. Their entire campaign is made up of one sentence. Mitt Romney doesn't like people like you. Rick Scott doesn't like people like you. Mitt Romney made his 47% remark, which, by the way, fed the narrative that he doesn't like people like you. Rick Scott closed the polls on Sunday where black people vote. I didn't know anybody voted on Sunday, but apparently if you close the polls on Sunday, you're now racist. But that's just the whole, this isn't, Rick Scott doesn't get to say, hey, I created jobs and Charlie Crist killed jobs, so why don't you vote for me? And the answer is, Rick Scott doesn't like people like me. That is 100% of their campaign. When you do one speech at the Apollo, that campaign falls apart. You cannot go to the Apollo and talk about two-parent families and sexually transmitted disease and ever have another person say, Mitt Romney doesn't like people like you. Because all of a sudden you're the only ones talking about what these people are really living and the only ones who are ready to offer solutions and say, hey, why don't we team up and really change your lives in a way that Democrats would never think of doing. So yes, we need to fund, the Republican Party needs to fund the NBRA, the NHRA, then they can sit down with Francis Rice and people like them. And they can do what we did. They can take all the black Alan Bernsteins and they can go into all the churches and they can challenge them and say, let's have the debate about which party is better for the black community, which party is better for the Hispanic community, which party is going to get you jobs, which party is going to solve the crime, which party is going to allow you to own a gun. So when the thugs come into your store, you can actually protect yourself. This isn't that hard. I have a concept. This is important. I call it peeling. This is very important, the peeling concept. P-E-E-L. Peeling. The reason this is important and this stuff is so good is because when I say I want to win the black community, I don't want to win 80% of the black community. I don't want to win 50% of the black community. I want to win 20. If you win 20% of the black community, you can win 50 states. If we had won 20% of Philadelphia, Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, Milwaukee, we win every one of those states that they're in. That's how easy this is. So I have a concept called peeling. The idea is to identify the peels. What's a peel? In the Jewish community, there are 3 peels. So it's easy. I'm Jewish, figure it out. 3 peels. 1, young. The grandchildren of the grandparents who will never vote for you will vote for you. Meaning you can actually have a discussion with them. Okay, that's appeal. 2, affluent. Jewish people, as a group, are high earners. We have a president who thinks he should take all their money. Trust me, I live in a precinct like that. John McCain lost the precinct, Mitt Romney got 57%. It makes a difference. 3rd, orthodox. If you're actually a Jewish person who believes in Judaism, as opposed to the vast majority of American Jews who believe in the Democratic Party, if you actually believe in Judaism and care about Israel, you're a voter of ours. Michael Horowitz taught me this years ago. You guys don't know Michael, but he taught me this years ago. He said, Sid, why does the RJC waste their time and money going to Century Village when those people never voted for a Republican in their life and never will? He said, my synagogue is 50-50, is an Orthodox synagogue, 50% Republican, 50% Democrat. Come to my synagogue, get the other 50%. I said, this kid's onto something. And he was right. Now let's talk about peeling in the black community. There are peels in the black community. 1, Caribbeans. Black people who are either born in the Caribbean or whose ancestors are Caribbean, are immigrants like my grandparents. They're not like a lot of what you see in the African American communities. They're immigrants. They came here for the jobs, for the families, for the church, and they want to do better. And everybody says to them, well, the color of your skin is black, so you have to vote like blacks. And then they say, well, you came from Haiti and you want a democracy, so you have to be a Democrat. This is what they say to them, literally. Okay? And what do I say to them? I'll tell you in a minute, because good stuff. Other appeals in the black community, Chamber of Commerce. There are a whole lot of small businessmen in the black community. They're not voting for us. They should be voting for us. They're our voters. They're getting beaten up by Obama as much as a white small businessman. Business owners, gun owners. I'm not talking about gangbangers. I'm talking about the people who want to protect their families and businesses. These are our guys. We don't need guns in Ballard where I live. They need guns in parts of West Palm Beach because it's simply unsafe and they have a high crime rate. Two-parent families, my favorite one. Everybody says 70% of black kids in America in the inner cities are born out of wedlock. I say turn it upside down. That means 30% of the black kids in the inner cities are born to two parents. Remember, they got 70, we got 30. If we ever got that 30% to vote for us, and not a single other vote from anywhere in the country, we win. That one piece in the inner city black community would give us enough of a vote to carry every state that we need to carry. And those same people, go to my next deal, the charter school families, the Catholic school families, anybody trying to get their kids out of the dropout factories, these are all people. Who do you think started charter schools and supported? When that came up in the legislature, every Democrat in the state voted against charter schools. And it was only because we had a new majority of Republicans in the late 90s. And what did we get for it? Nothing. And what politically? And why did we get nothing for it? Because we didn't then take it. And we didn't act like we really cared. We act like we did good Republican conservative social policy, which we did. But we didn't take that policy like we did with Margie and open the office at Glades and 441. We didn't open the office in downtown West Palm Beach. We didn't send out the black equivalent of Alan Bergstein to go have the intellectual rumbles that need to be had in the black community and the Hispanic community, a lot more than they need to be had in the Jewish community. Believe me when I tell you that. Appeals in the Hispanic community. The very Catholic. Many Hispanics are very Catholic, as opposed to Catholic. The very Catholic are Republicans. Obama declared war on their church. It's not hard to talk to these people. The chambers, the business owners, the religious school families, the educated. These are all our voters when we go out and ask for them. The Democrats show up at citizenship ceremonies and say, hey, you came from democracy, you're a Democrat. Here's your registration card. We don't. I want to show up at citizenship ceremonies and I want to have the postcard that says, take the test. Ready? Take the test. Pro-life versus pro-choice. Jobs versus food stamps. Families versus gangs. Hard work versus affirmative action. School choice versus dropout factories. Marco Rubio versus Jesse Jackson. You don't think we could get 20% of that? Yeah, but we never asked. All right. So now let me close, and let me say this, because I'm dead serious in this speech. If we ever got 20% of the black vote, 40% of the Hispanic vote, and 1/3 of the Jewish vote, you would not have to have an election then. The other side wouldn't even show up. We would win everywhere. It's that easy, and it's that close. The Democrats have an unbroken string of creating poverty, of destroying families, of supporting dropout factories, of discouraging investment, and of disarming law-abiding citizens. Republicans are the only chance our cities have. But we, as Republicans, one, have to actually believe in the things that we say that we believe in, not intellectually, but viscerally. And then, like missionaries, have the courage to share those beliefs with those in our society who need it the most. Thank you and God bless.